Hi, everyone. Um, my name is Dr. Aisha Bonner-Kozan, and I'm excited to be your professor this semester for Social Policy 2. Um, just a little bit about me. I started my education as a special ed teacher, and relatively quickly realized that while I love educating, I wanted to work with people who were struggling in other ways, and social work seemed like a good fit. Um, but I didn't go back to school. I actually started working. I worked for a group home in upstate New York, um, dealing with folks who had a variety of issues: traumatic brain injury, some autism, um, and various other issues, and really enjoyed it. So I ended up staying in the same area, but moving to a transitional housing unit that dealt with kids who um, had a variety of emotional disturbances. Um, at the time in upstate New York, when you aged out of the youth mental health system, um, you had no access to services until you were 21. So some enterprising social work types wrote a grant and started this transitional services, which provided mental health and housing for folks who were between 18 and 21. So I really kind of cut my teeth working at this group. It was an amazing opportunity. And about halfway through my tenure there, I realized I really have to go back to school and get my master's degree. So I started MSW program at SUNY Buffalo in upstate New York, and ended up finishing that degree at Howard. Um, and from there, I really thought I was going back into clinical work, but I ended up staying and continuing in the doctoral program. So in 2012, I graduated with my doctorate in gerontology and public policy. During my time in the doctoral program, I had an opportunity to work with Dr. Patera, who's a gerontologist, and really just fell in love with the field, which I think is something that happens in social work so much. You get an opportunity to work with a group of people or on a special project and find that you're uniquely aligned to do that work. I won't go so far as to call it a vocation, but definitely a calling to work with the aging. In part, I think, because I have close relationships with my parents, and watching them age, and my grandmother, who passed away, watching sort of the pathway she took, and I certainly feel the effects of getting older every year. Um, and I'm very concerned about the state of our all of our systems: health, housing, transportation, mental health, um, as our population ages. Um, so I ended up taking an internship at AARP, and never left. So I've been working at AARP, which, if you don't know, is used to be called the Association for American Association for Retired Persons. We don't use the acronym anymore. We just say AARP. And it is the largest membership organization um, of those who are 50 and older in the United States. Um, AARP is a fascinating place. It has both a nonprofit and a for-profit side. I work for the nonprofit. Um, it is a membership organization with a social mission, um, which gives it a very unique feel, while at the same time having resources that are more aligned with what you might see in a corporate structure. So we have members that we're responsible um, to help them and to do right by them, but we definitely have a strong underlying social mission that's all about helping people live their best lives as they get older. So it's really just been I don't want to repeat myself, but just a unique opportunity to bring my social work skills and my research skills to bear on the issue of aging, where I have opportunities to both influence policy um, and affect people's daily lives. And for me, as a social worker, it doesn't get much better than that. I have a strong connection to policy. Um, Obviously, I teach policy here at Howard and have for a number of years. I feel incredibly deeply that social workers have got to have a better understanding of policy, how it works, um, how it impacts our clients and organizations' lives, and how to ensure that we have a seat at the table when policy is being developed. I did a lot of my policy coursework at George Mason, which is, if you're not familiar, they have a very large policy department, and many people who work in DC who are involved in politics go to George Mason to get their credentials. And while I was taking classes, and we were doing projects or, doing work in class, I was always astonished at how I would always be the only person in the room who would say, but what about the people this impacts? Like, yes, I know this is all hypothetical, we're not solving real life problems, we're illustrating for the sake of learning, but even in that regard, for you to create policy, to change policy, to analyze policy without understanding the very real way that those policies impact the lives of people is dangerous and irresponsible. And I would bring to bear our current political situation in the United States right now, where the people who are leading our government, many of them, don't seem to have any understanding of how the decisions they make are impacting real people's lives every day. And I think it's easy to see how utterly disastrous that is. So I'm very committed to the teaching of policy and making sure that every crop of social workers that we send out have a firm root in the policy world, whether they're going to do direct practice, micro, meso, wherever you go, you will be impacted by policy. How you do your job, who you can do your job for, the money that you have to do your job, all of it will be influenced by policy. And if you don't know how that works, and you aren't prepared to advance change, you'll find yourself stuck in untenable situations. Um, so that's a little bit about me and why I'm doing this, and um, my interest. Personally, I am married. I have one son who is 15, going on 1,000. One dog, one house. Um, that's about it. um, I love living in this area. I've been here for, well, this time for 15 years. I lived here when I was younger. I lived in Maryland, in Silver Spring, Maryland, um, and before we went overseas. And just think this is a great area. There's certainly a lot of opportunities here that you don't necessarily find in other places. And for a policy wonk like myself, it's just a fabulous opportunity to be in the room where it happens. For any of you Hamiltonians out there. I'm a little bit of a nerd. No, scratch that. I'm a great big giant nerd. And love science fiction, love reading. And I hope that this semester you will be able to internalize this information on social policy and figure out how it works, how it will play a role in your career as a social worker. So that's about it. I'm looking forward to reading all about you guys, and I hope everything goes well. I'll just say on the class front, the most important things I can tell you are really pay attention to deadlines. I think it's very easy with online classes to let things go to the last minute because you don't have to come look at me in a classroom. So that type of interpersonal accountability doesn't exist. But for students who've had me before, you'll know that what I lay out in the syllabus is exactly what I intend to do. I certainly am here to help you, to be a resource to you in any way that I can. But I feel very strongly that you really have to have, what's the word I'm looking for? I think you have to be uniquely disciplined to do online work and be successful. I think a lot of people take it because they think it's going to be easier. I would say that I think online courses are actually harder because you have to self-motivate to do everything. I won't be there breathing down your neck or giving you, that look in the classroom. So, having said that, I think most people are successful in my classes, but you really do have to stick to the guidelines, being on time, pacing yourself, making sure you're getting your reading done so you can respond to discussion board questions, so that you're prepared. So any way that I can help you with that, please let me know. And I'm looking forward to a great semester with you all. All right, take care.